Say What They Can't Radio.
Good afternoon, and welcome to another live broadcast of Radio One World Fest Live. Coming to you live here from the beautiful studios We Say What They Can't in downtown Brooklyn, New York City. We're here today to talk to you about voting. I have some very special guests in the house. We're going to be speaking to them and getting their perspectives on what it is to vote in this very crucial upcoming midterm election cycle. As you all know, there's a lot of votes and a lot of offices that are looking for votes that are up for re-election and election this year on the state, local, and national level. So the guests that we brought in today are going to help us understand how important it is to be a part of this crucial midterm election and why you should actually all get out there and be a part of it. I have with me here today some very esteemed guests, and they're going to weigh in and just introduce themselves and tell us exactly why they're here. First, let me say your name because I'm happy to say it first. We have Mr. Amir Abadi here. How you doing, sir? Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. We have Miss Naila Amaru here. How you doing this morning, Naila?
I am blessed. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. And we have Mr. Anthony Beckford here with us today. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you all for joining us. I want to start with you, Amir. I just want you to tell us a little bit about your background and what brings you to this discussion here today.
Sure. I'm a Democratic activist out of Queens, New York. I have a long reputation of working with numerous Democratic organizations out there, specifically Southeast Queens, working with the Queens County Young Democrats to mobilize youth voters, the Fred Wilson Democratic Club, Guy R. Brewer Democratic Club, Douglas King Democratic Club, United for Progress Democratic Club. Basically, anybody who's willing to help get Democrats elected in the neighborhood that I'm from, I'll work with them.
Okay, thank you very much. And Miss Naila, tell us a little bit about your background and what brings you here today with us.
Absolutely. So I am Naila Amaru, and I'm an advocacy and policy strategist based here in Brooklyn, New York. And I have, throughout my career, worked at every level of government, from City Hall to the Capitol to Capitol Hill. And I've also worked on behalf of community-based organizations and nonprofits as it relates to helping them connect to government officials when it comes to legislative issue campaigns. And I come into this conversation through the perspective as a millennial who is part of America's largest electoral bloc, which is something that we're definitely going to discuss here in this conversation. And again, to share my insight and what I know to help people bring out to the polls.
Great. And Mr. Beckford, give us a little bit about your background and what brings you here today.
I'm a long-time community advocate, an activist since the age of 12. Basically, the leader of the Brooklyn sector for Cop Watch Patrol Unit. I'm a grassroots, advocate when it comes to the various organizations throughout the community of Flatbush, East Flatbush, Bed-Stuy and so forth. But I'm also running for state assembly in my district, also to bring in change. I'm trying to introduce people to a new format of people over party. We get divided enough amongst everything, colorism, finances, everything like that. But it's about time that we stop allowing the party lines to divide us so that way we can come together and have more power.
Okay, so Noah, we're going to start with you since you're actually running for office.
Okay.
Tell us what inspired you to run for office, and you're running for state assembly here in Brooklyn?
State assembly, 42nd district.
Why the state assembly here in the 42nd district?
Because there's two levels that I'm focusing on. One, the city council. I did that last year, but that was more of an accountability race. I ran against Jamani Williams, who's everybody's favorite. But the thing is, there was a lot of things that I knew about Jamani that was not, being put out there in the forefront, but it was affecting things in our district. So I had to run against him to let him know that I was on his heels. And even though I lost the race itself against him, I won what my agenda was, which is to keep him accountable, but then also have him tighten up on what he needed to do and bring him back to his grassroots elements, which he's doing now. Definitely support what he's doing right now and so forth, but then
running for public advocate.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, it was originally it was for the lieutenant governor,
right?
And he put in numbers
along with Cynthia Nixon. He was running for lieutenant governor on her ticket.
Yeah, definitely, and he put in numbers, especially for a black candidate. Like he spoke volumes to the rest of us, but then for state assembly, I wasn't even going to do state assembly. I was going to wait for 2021 to go for another, another kick at city council.
Okay.
But then people started telling me, like, hey, you need to run for state assembly. I'm like, why? My thing is there has to be a purpose. There has to be accountability. And I didn't know who my state assemblywoman was because she was the one that kept themselves quiet. So, to me, if I don't know who you are and you keep yourself quiet, there's a problem, there's an issue that you're trying to hide. And that's what ended up happening. The more I started digging in to her finances, where her money's coming from, which I always tell people, follow the money.
Okay.
Started seeing that, she started, she was dealing with Real Estate Board of New York. She's dealing with, the real estate industry. She was dealing, with PBA, which is the racist union for the NYPD, and dealing with, basically money was coming from places that did not agree with the beliefs and the agendas of the people. So that's when I said, okay, in December 15th of last year, I said, okay, I'm going to start running against her. I didn't announce her right away. I started building the campaign, and then in April was when I fully announced it. And then since then, a lot of people have been backing, especially a lot of people within the East Flatbush community. Now I'm getting more support from Ditmas Park and Midwood areas because they're starting to see that, I am the person that's actually trying to bring actual change. And the big issue that's going on is our housing. And this little petty battles going between the two party system, it has to stop. Because they fighting over party lines. We got greater issues than that.
Absolutely.
People getting gunned down by the police.
Right.
We got poverty in our communities. We're losing our housing.
Right.
Our elders are getting tricked out of their housing by city agencies.
Okay.
It's big.
We're gonna delve into a lot of that. And I see you have a lot to say on all those issues, and I'm very glad because I need you guys to really weigh in on me. This is important. I want to kind of lay back today. I think I'm the elder here, and it's supposed to be like that. I wanted to bring in you bright young folks to really talk to us about what's going on here. Naila, I want to come to you because you're with an organization called Vote, Run, Lead.
Yes.
And I think what you guys are doing is great. Down there. You promote women to run for office. Tell us a little bit about Vote, Run, Lead and how you became involved with the organization.
Absolutely. So Vote, Run, Lead is a nonpartisan, nonprofit national organization, and our mission is to change the face of political leadership here in America. And what we want to do is basically to train women to run for public office and to win. And so we have a curriculum. We host national regional trainings where women, depending on where they are in the nation, can come together and, number one, begin to build a network and learn the technical aspects of what does it mean to craft a campaign plan. Okay. What does it take to win? How do you move from this decision of I'm going to run to I'm going to move from this vision of me in office to me executing tactical operations to make that happen?
Right.
And I think one of the things that I love most deeply about the work that we do is I am also an alumna, and I'm currently a certified national trainer with the organization. Okay. But I think fundamental to our work is inviting women to look at ourselves in a different way, right? I have worked so many campaigns, I've lost count. I've worked at the city level, congressional, mayoral, federal, and my story is no different from millions of other women out there. We are the volunteers, we are the fundraisers, right. We are the ones organizing events, we are knocking on doors, we are telling our girlfriends to vote for, this person. We are, after Absolutely. Church services, we are bringing half the congregation to the polls, right. But we are very rarely the ones to offer our leadership on the ballot. And our lived experiences as women of color in particularly, we have this tremendous value to bring into this political sphere, and we are not part of the conversation. And so fundamental to the work that we do at Vote, Run, Lead is, again, aside from the campaign training, which is absolutely essential to executing winning campaigns, right. But it's also, again, an invitation for women to learn to look at themselves in a different way, specifically through the lens of political leadership.
That's great. That's great. I see that you guys have a very high success rate, too, of the women that have come out of your program and that have actually run for office. What do you attribute that to? Absolutely.
So our win rate is over 70% of our alumni right. go on to win their first campaigns. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm very proud to say that a good majority of our alumni are also women of color. Okay. And I think, again, we attribute that to a few things. Number one, a support network is so critical. Oftentimes, offering your leadership in such a public way, particularly as a woman, in today's society, it is a very scary thing. And oftentimes, it can feel like you are the only one.
Right.
And when you're offering your leadership for the first time, particularly with the gender dimensions of what does it mean to run for office as a woman, is a very different experience than it is to run for office as a man. And then you add all the other dimensions as a Latina, as a Black woman, as an Asian woman. The racial dimensions definitely play an element into perception and how do you navigate those obstacles. And so I think it's number one, we train women how to enter politics with a purpose. And again, making sure that the women who come into our space and are a place where they want to offer their leadership politically, that we provide them the support network and we provide them with the right training that they need. Because again, we are in the business of not just running women for office just to run. We are in the business of changing the face of political leadership, and we do that by preparing women the best way that we can with the expertise of campaign management, with the network of supportive women across the nation who are going through the same thing or have gone through the same thing or about to go into the same thing.
Right.
And also, I think whether you win or you lose, you walk away on election night with this unique experience that so few Americans have, which is you offered yourself to the public politically as a woman to run for public office. And that is an experience that very few people understand. And so we create this space, this network, this organization. It's more than just an organization. I think, again, it's a sisterhood of women from, again, across the political spectrum, across the nation, for every level of government. We're successful because we create this space that connects all those different elements of what it takes to run for office as a woman in America.
That's great. And you said something very crucial about how it's different and more difficult for a woman to run for office than it is for a man. I'm going to come back to you because I have a question about that. But Mr. Amir, I'd like to talk to you about, because it's great sitting here with all these young people. Well, I think when I was you guys' age, I was not interested in politics at all. It took for me to get a little older and start having a family and start to realize that all politics are local. Why is this thing pointing at me? Nobody wants to see me. That all politics are local and that you can actually have an influence on your quality of life if, in fact, you get in local politics and you become aware of who your local councilman is, who your local assembly person is, who your local person is for the legislature and things of that nature. So tell me, what inspired you to get involved in politics? You have a very serious resume of working with some of the establishment Democratic organizations in the community, and I see that you're currently pursuing a master's degree in public administration.
Yes, sir.
So tell us, at such a young age, why did you decide to get involved in politics?
I got involved in politics because I learned very quickly that my generation is getting less than the generation before it. And that was the first time that's happened to our country since the Great Depression. I'm living a harder life than my parents did and their parents did in this country. And that's a problem for me.
Right.
When I realized that in college, that I'm going to walk away from college with a mortgage before I had my first job. Because that's the way we got to see it. Student debt is a mortgage we're putting on the generation.
Absolutely.
That mortgage is not supposed to exist. It didn't exist for my parents, and it shouldn't exist for the next generation.
Right.
In order to affect the kind of change I wanted to see in my community, I needed to listen to my president who said, be the change you want to see in the world. So I walked into the nearest city council member's office, and I asked him for an internship. And then I asked for more responsibility and more responsibility. Because I was not going to complain, I was going to present solutions.
Okay, so you were inspired by Be the Change You Want to See.
Absolutely.
Was that the first presidential election that you voted in?
I was
The
actually
Obama
not
election,
allowed to
2008?
vote for Obama, but I was definitely interested in that campaign. It wasn't
Really?
until the election after Obama that I actually was able
Or 2012?
2009, actually.
Okay.
Yes, there was a municipal election in my neighborhood,
Right.
and I was paying attention in 2008, and then I was still paying attention in 2009, unlike other people, let's be honest.
Okay.
And in 2009, there was still campaigning going on, so I decided to start asking questions. Who's on the ballot? What are they on the ballot for? Why is there an election on 2009? What's
Right.
the city council?
Right.
Curiosity leads to questions, and it was up to me to find answers. And over time, you find the answers, and that leads to more questions, leads to more opportunities, leads to more change you want to see in the world.
Okay. Let me ask you this, because I'm a Queens resident as well, and I'm familiar with a lot of the local politicians there, as well as some of the Democratic organizations in Queens. Tell us what, if anything, are they doing to outreach to some of the younger people in the community like yourself who are who become curious as a result of being inspired by something they may see or hear from a politician or just something going on in their neighborhood? What do the organizations out there have in place to bring young people to the ballot?
So that's the interesting thing going on in the greater politics, not just in my neighborhood. The greater politics, there's a large generational divide that we as a community need to overcome.
Okay.
The generation that's leading mostly my community and most communities of color is the older generation.
That's right.
The generation that's the backbone of their churches, the backbone of their community institutions. In order for a transition to happen, there's going to be a generational shift. It's inevitable. The question is, how can we make that as holistic as possible? Because we don't want anybody to be ostracized.
Right.
They're doing good for their generation. I need to do good for my generation, which is
Okay.
why I try my best to participate in both worlds. I learn from the seniors in my community, but I also organize the millennials in my community. That's one of the big reasons I'm heavily involved in the Young Democrats. It is an institutional way for me to get involved in the Democratic Party. The more organized I am, the more professional I am, the more clear my objectives are to the leadership, the more they respect my opinion and the opinion of my generation. I don't ask for respect, I demand it. How do I do that? By getting my together.
Okay.
Okay, I hope
Okay.
that was censored enough.
You can say the name of this organization is We Say What They Can, so you can say what you want up here, bro. It's all good. We in Vegas.
Sounds
We in
good.
Brooklyn. In Brooklyn, you may as well be in Vegas because you're taking a lot of chances around this piece. Okay, thank you very much for that. Amir, let me come back to you, Naila, because you had mentioned earlier that it's very different for a woman candidate to run for any office, be it local, state, federal. Can you speak to some of the challenges women face when they decide to go ahead and vote, run, and lead?
Absolutely. So, throughout the history of America and the world, leadership has always been assumed a masculine trait. And so, because men have traditionally held the formal positions of leadership, there is this, unconscious expectation of what leadership looks like, and it unfortunately looks like male.
Okay.
And so, one of the challenges is always, the change has to begin with the woman to begin to understand and see that leadership is not always this thing that we have thought it was,
Right.
and that leadership looks different and it looks like us. And so I think that the biggest change in this decision of I want to get involved with my community because I'm not happy with what's going on. Not enough is being done, or my elected officials aren't representing me the way that I think they should. There's something that happens from identifying the problem as something that happens over there and something that other people do to fix it, to I am the one who has the responsibility and the leadership to change the things that I want to change. And when that shift happens, women were unstoppable, right? Because once we fully step into our leadership, because we recognize the power that we have, because we recognize the value of our experience, because we recognize the need for our voices to be part of the conversation, when we understand that we cannot wait for an invitation to the table of power, but that we're snatching seats left and right and we're dragging it to the table, and we're bringing all our girlfriends with us. That is when we begin to change the conversation about what issues are we talking about as a community. What are the policies that include my perspective, my lived experience as a woman of color? Because traditionally, when we're talking about legislative priorities, they're understood through the framework of male domination because that's who makes up our legislative bodies, right?
Absolutely.
And so when we have diversity in government, particularly in elected positions in our legislative bodies, there's that diversity of thought and diversity of perspectives that brings so much value to this idea called democracy, right? And so when my perspective is not represented in conversations that result in laws and policies that govern my everyday life, then that's a problem. Then democracy doesn't include me. Then this idea, we the people, does not mean me as a woman of color, me as all the identities and labels that we carry and some that we're burdened with. And so I think, again, that there's this process, and that process from going from point A, there's a problem, to point B, I'm the solution, begins with this realization of our own power and learning how to step fully into that power and exercising it, not for the sake of yielding it just to yield it, but for the sake of building community and making the change that we want to see.
Okay. I think that here in this country, a lot of us have been anesthetized to politics. We only think of politics as being something, as you mentioned, that they do over there, that those people are involved in. Coming from the islands, I was born in St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands, and I noticed that a lot of people who come from different islands, a lot of our brown folks, we understand how the decisions that the politicians make, it can affect us so much more directly when you live in those smaller environments. So a lot of the people that I meet from the Caribbean are a little bit more conscious of the political situation in their home because they see those decisions affecting their the quality of life immediately. Whereas here, it's kind of, it filters down a little bit more to us, and we don't really start to realize how important it is to get involved in the political spectrum, at least speaking for myself, until years later, because I was basically raised here in the U.S. Let me go to you, Mr. Beckford. Again, since you are running for office, let me get my phone thing right. Am I showing my age? I'm trying to do this live thing. Rock, talk to me, man. Tell me some of the challenges that you face running for office and getting the young people, trying to motivate the young people in your area involved. Who are you reaching out to get involved to expand the political base to hopefully be successful in your undertaking?
Well, one of my challenges is the fact that I'm just raw and uncut. You know, I say what's on my mind. I don't care, about impressing anybody. It's about me speaking for the people. My people call me the voice of the silence. They're out here telling us, oh, well, you're not fit this way. We didn't groom you this way, so you can't be in our circle. But my thing is, I'm not coming to sit at your table. I'm coming with my own table, and I'm going to place it on top of your table.
Okay.
Like I tell people, a lot of times, they would call us radical. But then look at Charles Barron, all the things that he's done, from a Panther to running 4 times before he even got in.
Respect
And his words last year impressed me. He was like, it doesn't matter how many times you run, just get in there and do what you got to do for the people. So then that's when I came up with this terminology that I'm going to Nat Turner the system. Because
what does that mean?
That basically means that all this white patriarchy that's out there, this white supremacy that's been taken over. Because we have to understand, this system wasn't created or built for us. Okay. This system was created and built to keep us out as long as possible. Okay. And every time we get in, they create a different diversion. This is why, like I said, they want to keep on trying to push us until we no longer have a voice. This is why they, buy out the black candidates that are supposed to represent us, but not every skin is kin. You have a lot of these people.
Time and again, voting certain people in the office only to see them get in and serve their own interests as opposed to serving the interests of the community.
And that goes to what Malcolm X said. You got the house slave and you got the field slave. The house slave gonna please his master more than he pleases himself and love his master more than he loves himself. But you might as well call me the field slave because I'm not only burning down the plantation, but I'm going out there to make sure I free my people. And those who actually want to come along, we're gonna make sure we bring them along. And this is the thing that we need to realize as a people. And this is why I also reach out to the youth, because nothing in politics actually caters to the youth. Because everybody's like, oh, they're wild ones. Oh, they don't care about anything. Right. But the reason they don't give a damn is because we stopped giving a damn. I had this one woman out here in the sty tell me one day, she apologized. She was like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, sorry for what? She was like, my father was a civil rights leader. She was like, after we got our $60,000 jobs, after we got our homes, and we were able to, to live in some kind of peace, we forgot about building for y'all. So my thing is, okay, since you forgot about building for us, and we had 20, 30 years of complacency, so it's about time that we start building for ourselves now. A lot of us, we didn't jump in saying we're going to do this. Right. If you asked me 4 years ago if I'm going to run for politics, I'm like, nah, I'd rather shut them down. Right. This is all I've been doing, shutting them down. I've helped pushed out, the police commissioner Bratton. We shut down de Blasio, many things that, we didn't like that he was doing. We shut down various, city council members, various elected officials, even district leaders. That came into our radar because we realized even though it's it's an unpaid job, they still got a lot of influence on a lot of things. You know, so the more I started, educating myself on the process, is the more that I started going out there and actually, teaching, the youth, about being civic minded.
Okay.
Teaching them how, how politics in the streets kind of is one and the same. You got a tier system. You got a belief. Matter of fact, what you're out there talking about and doing, that is your politics.
Okay, so let me ask you this: what party line are you running on?
I'm actually running on the Greens right now. I was a Democrat since I was 18 because I was told to be a Democrat. That's how it is. It is from the islands.
Right.
It was the lesser of two evils. Whoever came and tried to, quote unquote, try to save us. My family's Jamaican, Cuban, Thaino, and Indian. So they reached out more than the Republicans did. But then we came over. But then the thing is, like, you got one that will stab you in your back and one that will stab you in your face. And that's how every party is. You're always going to still have, because I've had my quarrels within the party itself because, like I said, I'm too black for a lot of these parties out there. But my thing is, like, either you love my melanin or you fear my resistance.
Okay, so since a lot of us are only familiar with the Republicans and the Democrats and what they have to offer, tell us a little bit more about the Green Party. I'm sure folks have heard the name Green Party.
Yeah, well,
tell us a little bit about that platform. What are they offering?
The Green Party basically is offering everything on a socialist type of level, but then also their platform relates more to the people because it's more grassroots. But then you look at the fact that there's not only the Green Party. This two-party system that we're taught was because of the two powers that were from the time of enslavement to now, and so forth. It was two parties that was able to, build and were getting their funding via corporations, so forth like that. But none of these parties was really a direct representation of us, the people. We just decided to side with the lesser of two evils. Okay. But then you have the Green Party, you got the Reform Party, you got the Libertarians. These are all third parties that are out there, platforms based off of who they run and cater to. And the Green Party is more for for Earth, for climate and everything else like that. Where I'm bringing in more of the dynamics when it comes to the black politics into the conversation to let them understand. Yes, it's good to see a tree grow.
Right.
Hardly see them. We used to hardly see them in Brooklyn until that ad started popping around. Tree grows in Brooklyn.
Right. It's a famous book.
Yeah, but then at the same time, as a black child, black man, as a black woman, we have to be able to live to see that tree. We have to be able to pay our bills to have that tree in front of our, apartment buildings.
Okay. You said something very important about how once folks get in, then all of a sudden the agenda changed. They talk a good game before they get in. And when they get in, it becomes different. I'm going to come back to you on that. I want to ask you a question, Naila. When you encourage women to run, do they have to have any particular party affiliation, or are they just running based upon their own ideals and you guys are giving them the blueprint on exactly how to do it? What's your criteria for that?
So Vote Run Lead is a nonpartisan organization. Okay. So we encourage women from across the political spectrum to offer their leadership. And that's really important, again, because diversity of thought, diversity of perspective is really important when we're having conversations about what issues are important and thinking about solutions to those problems. And we certainly get more quality conversations legislatively if there's diversity in that thought. So to be clear, we are a nonpartisan organization, and we encourage every woman who's interested across the spectrum, no matter her political party, to again offer her leadership.
Have you noticed at all, though, whether or not most of the women that decide to run and ask you guys for direction, do they lean towards one party or another?
Yes, a good number of our women who come through our training programs do identify as Democrat, but we certainly have Republicans, Libertarians, Green Party candidates. Again, we welcome any woman who is interested in running for office. We provide her that training. I will be remiss to say that particularly for these last two election cycles, since the 2016 elections, we have a plethora of women on the Democratic side offering their leadership.
Okay, great. Amir, I noticed that you've run campaigns for a number of local and state officials in Queens. Can you tell us, are you working on any campaigns that are going to be affected by this upcoming midterm election vote?
So after the primary, I had a bit of a hiatus. So I was involved in the state primary to help Tish James get elected as the first black woman to be the Democratic Party's nominee for statewide office.
Okay.
So I'm taking November off to do some volunteer work. I'll be bouncing around in Long Island trying to get some seats that are red to turn blue for us out there. There's pockets of color out there
That's
that
going to
need
be
to be activated a lot more
a nice
effectively.
heavy lift out on Long Island.
Yes.
But
Luckily, I
I'm
know
sure
some
it could
people
get
out there,
done.
and they'll show me my way around. They'll give me a little passport so I can go through the security checkpoints and everything.
Okay.
So-
Do you have any idea that one day you may decide to run for office?
I won't knock the possibility, but to me, it's more important that change is done. Whether I'm the person who does it or not is secondary, because the principles that are needed to affect the change are more important than the person who affects the change. Because we very well might have a person of color, a white person who does the change that needs to be done.
Right.
At the end of the day, the change was done. That's more important than anything else to me.
Absolutely.
I need somebody to make my life better. I need somebody who's going to make it easier for me to buy a home like my parents did. I need somebody who's going to make it easier for my kids to get a job because it was a struggle for me. In order for that to happen, there needs to be the right person at the table who makes the right decision at the right time. And I cannot just wait and hope. I have to make that happen. Right now, I'm focused on making sure the people in the New York State Senate stop obstructing the progress that keeps getting pitched to the Senate conference. Yes. There's been a myriad of good ideas that go to the Senate. Universal health care, providing college assistance to undocumented immigrants, women's reproductive rights. All of these have come through the legislature, got put on the desk of the Republican leader of the state Senate, and nothing was done with any of them. That is obstruction. At the end of the day, you need to remove the obstructor for obstruction to resolve. My job this election cycle, and hopefully the job of the entire Democratic Party, and even some cynical independents who are tired of the obstruction, is to get those guys out. And they have names, they are on the ballot, and we need to make sure their neighborhoods knows to come out to vote and get them out of office. Because there are 60-something-year-olds who have been very comfortable in their job out in Long Island, who have not showed up to a town hall this election cycle, who do not even know what their constituents look like, and are shocked when they find out there are people of color in Long Island these days because their bougie white country clubs don't allow those people to come by. We need to get those guys gone so that the real progress can happen in the entire state.
So I'm a young person. I'm chilling out. I'm sitting out in, let's say, North Hempstead. Oh, let's say Wheatley Heights. Let's say, one of those areas that's, my parents are relatively comfortable. I'm chilling on Long Island. Everything's good for me, except unless I happen to go to another part of that community where things get a little sketchy. Why do I need to get involved in politics if I'm cooling out in Wheatley Heights somewhere?
So I would tell you to get involved in politics because it affects every level of your life. Okay. So I would get to know the person, because the one thing politicians en masse do is they talk to a person, or they talk to people as opposed to a person. And you need to get to know the person. A person's issues are their issues. They may have similar issues to others, but your issues are unique to you. Mm-hmm. You get to know them. They might have a college tuition problem. They might have an immigration problem in the family. They might have a record in the family. All of these have applicable policies that can positively affect their lives. If I got to know you, I can explain how politics can bring progress to your circumstance. I will make you believe in the change you want to see. That's the thing that I think caused us to lose in 2016. We didn't make people believe in the change we want to see in the world. So instead, they picked the change that the other guy was offering. The Agent Orange in the White House has presented his own interest, his own direction, his own vision. And a lot of people are happy with that vision, but a lot of people are upset about that vision. And we need to create a counter, a narrative that says, this change is better than what you're seeing. Your circumstances are not better than they were 4 years ago. Right. So let's take it in the right direction.
Okay. You said something earlier about having to sit on a mountain of debt as a result of going to school. I know in a lot of countries, a lot of industrialized nations, higher education is free. College education is free. Here in this country, unfortunately, we have to pay for what a lot of people around the world in countries less affluent than ours are able to offer for free to their people. What politicians or what issues, what laws are out there that are right now being put on the table by either party that are going to help someone who is a young person struggling with student loan and student debt? What laws are out there that can help that person, and who should they be looking at for answers to help them with that?
So I'm a policy wonk, which is why I could answer that question, but the average person probably couldn't. I'm a nerd.
I thought so.
Unapologetic.
I was hoping so. I could tell as much so far.
As a nerd,
You're the person to ask that question.
As a nerd, I know that when we introduced the Excelsior Scholarship, The
Okay.
reason we passed it as the way it is because we knew that was all the Republicans would let us pass. It is damn sure not the solution to our problem. It is not a perfect system, but I thank the governor for taking us a step forward. As soon as January comes around, and as soon as we have a Democratic Senate, I will guarantee you I will be out there with my CUNY brothers and sisters marching and asking for more. Because what we got was unacceptable as a last straw. So, what are the ideas on the table? Before we had the Excelsior Scholarship, there was an idea to expand TAP to cover everything. TAP is a great system. It covers a lot of tuition. Just increase
I
it.
saw a little tap money when I was over at Queensborough Community College.
Exactly. Just
So I got
increase
my
it so it hits the
associate's
middle
degree. I saw
class
the
and
tap
not just the
money.
working
It was a good
family.
time of the year. Every semester when the tap money
There
came
you
around,
go.
it was a good time.
We don't need to reinvent the wheel. There are solutions, but those solutions don't have the vote in the legislature. Once we have the votes, we got to twist the arms, kiss the babies in order to make sure that the people demand the change that they want to see.
Okay, the Excelsior Scholarship, give us a little bit more about that. What is that exactly?
So the Excelsior Scholarship is a fund of last resort. So after you use up all your TAP, all your scholarships, all your grants, if you are a great student and you are a full-time student, you can use this to cover the rest of your bill. So it is designed to only help you in the margins, which it helps some people in some circumstances. But us communities of color usually don't get helped in those circumstances. We need help through the whole thing. We are not doing school full-time because we don't have a mommy and daddy to take care of us. We are working people. We are taking the 3-4 classes at night and doing the 9 to 5 during the day.
Absolutely.
We knew this when we were passing the bill, but we passed the bill because it would help some people. It was a move forward. And we're going to take another move forward after January when the legislature is blue and not mixed, and there's not obstructionists in government. That's what this is all about. November is about removing the obstruction to bring progress.
Okay.
Every candidate that you should be voting for should have an idea for how they want to make this state better. If your candidate cannot articulate what is wrong if your candidate cannot articulate what is wrong in Albany, in City Hall, in DC, they don't get it. The whole country knows there is something wrong, and they need to be able to articulate solutions. Period.
Okay. Thank you very much for that. Naida, let me come to you. I'm a single mother. I got 3 kids. I'm working very hard. I'm trying to get my kids from daycare every day. But I'm sitting back and I'm saying, what's going on right now is not going to work for me in terms of politically. But at the same time, the challenges that I'm facing on a day-to-day basis, just trying to raise my family really hard. But I want to do something about it. How do I start to get involved with Vote Run Leader? Of how do I start to get involved with maybe wanting to run for office when something that sounds like it takes a lot of time, when time is one of the very few things I don't have a lot of?
Absolutely. So political activism has a lot of different forms that you can engage in, right? And so political activism is certainly volunteering on a campaign. If you have the financial means, support the good candidates that speak to your values and are, pushing for policies that you're supportive of because they speak to what's important to you. You can volunteer, you can donate, you can organize. But for most people, who don't necessarily live and breathe politics in the quote unquote traditional way, something as simple as, I know people fall on 2 sides of what's called clicktivism in terms of social media. But one of the issues of why people don't get involved is because they don't think that they're impacted personally or because they don't trust government. And we have to unpack the reasons why do people not trust government. And it goes back to government accountability, right? Particularly for us in communities of color, we elect politicians who give great speeches,
Right.
tell us what we want to hear,
Right.
and then they go into office and they fail us time and time again, right? And then the onus becomes on us because we're electing them into office time and time again without the accountability
Absolutely.
of,
Absolutely.
you said you were going to do this and you didn't. So either I have the decision as a citizen to continue to vote for you, even though you have, a track record of broken promises, or I can find ways to engage opportunities or create opportunities to hold you accountable, so you can either do what you said that you were going to do, or find the person who's willing to do it. And so I think that it requires, I think a realization for ourselves as private citizens that government is not this abstract, vague institution that is all powerful and we can do nothing to change it, right? And I think oftentimes, particularly as people of color, as communities of color, as a voting bloc, we give away our power too freely and too easily, because we've already given up on the system, understandably, because the system has failed us time again, right? But when we give away our power because we don't recognize our power, we're failing ourselves, we're failing our children, and we're failing our neighborhoods. And so I think for those who have so many things going on in our lives, because we do, right? Everyone has a side hustle. The bill is due, the baby needs new shoes, the car got put on blocks, and so now we have, so life happens. But I think finding a way that you can engage, whether that's, something online, or whether that's something as time intensive as volunteering for a campaign for 1 or 2 hours, right? At the end of the day, this is about
That's how it starts.
Right, finding a way that connects with you. Not everybody feels comfortable knocking on doors, right? That's not for everybody, and that's okay, right? For some people, somebody would rather cut a check than donate 2 or 3 hours of their time, and that's fine. But just finding a venue that speaks to you, whether that's supporting a candidate, whether that's supporting a party, that you can say, I'm part of this. Because ownership, which we often don't feel as communities of color, is so important, because we have never really been part of the process, because as the point has been made prior in this conversation, this process was never meant to include us. And so we have this responsibility of finding ways that we can infiltrate the system and either choose to hold it accountable from within by being the elected officials, or holding the system accountable from without as advocates, right? By making sure that these elected officials who do fail us, how do we make them accountable? And that goes back to, we have to be engaged, because if you're not part of my voter universe as an elected official, and I know that you don't vote, I have really no incentive to make you happy, because you're not part of the voting bloc that I depend on to get reelected. But if I know that you come out and vote, and if I know that I'm going to do something or come out against an issue that you're supportive of, and I know that you vote, I'm going to have to think twice about what is the cost to me as an elected official if I come out for or against. I always say, in this line of business, press, money, and votes are the 3 things that matter most to politicians. If I come out for or against, is this going to cost me good coverage, or is this going to garner me good coverage, or is this going to cost me negative press coverage? Money. If I do something that makes you angry and you're a voter, you're not going to cut checks to my reelection campaign, and that's something you have to take in consideration. But if I do something, then I can send out a little press release, and I can say, look what I did, and I can use that for an ask for campaign donations for my reelection. And most importantly, this goes back to us as everyday people, the vote, right? Press, money, and votes. Regardless of, press, regardless of the money, at the end of the day, if we're not happy with what our elected representatives are doing, we can choose to fire them in the voting booth, or we can choose to support them and rehire them. And we do not have that power unless we show up and hold them accountable.
Exactly.
Okay, accountability is very important in politics. Obviously, it's very important in life. And you were speaking a little earlier, Mr. Beckford, about candidates that get in office and then don't keep their promise.
Yeah, lip service.
I think a lot of times people go into certain things, certain jobs, certain careers, and they want to be that change that we want to see. And cops, for instance, politicians, for instance, they go in. I'm going to really help to change and make a change and fix things as they are that I see them out here. And they get in and they realize they're up against a very rigid structure. And some folks end up saying, you know what, I'm just going to look out for my own behind, because I'm not going to be able to make these changes. So much this institutionalized whatever it is, whether it's racism, whether it's institutionalized economic imparities or differences and things of that nature. They're so ingrained into the system that it's going to be too hard for me, one man, to make a difference. So they end up becoming a part of the problem, and they went in wanting to become part of the solution. How are you going to guard against that, and what are your plans to guard against becoming just part of the problem at some point?
Yeah, because that's like I said, I'm part of the various movements
Becoming
out there,
accountable.
and that's one of the things that a lot of people in the movements why they step back from even supporting me in the election, because their thing was like, once you get in, you're in, like you're part of them.
Right.
But then slowly but surely, a lot of them start coming around because they started seeing like nothing's changing them, because a lot of times you'll see from the beginning, from what you the issues you talk about when you first come in, and then the issues you talk about closer to election, a lot of these people start changing their language.
Okay.
And that's what you have to watch out for. You know, that lip service. You know, they're out here talking good things, but they're not putting the actions into it. You know, but then you also have to look at where did they come from? If they weren't out there as advocates from before, then I'll say 8 out of 10 times, somebody is going to persuade them via money, favors, and so forth. And we've seen a lot of that out there. You know, look at Ben Carson right now. You know, very intellectual man.
He's not a politician, man. He's just somebody.
Yeah, but this is where a lot of them they get groomed for this. They get groomed for these positions and they get placed in,
Right.
and so forth. And the thing is, like, you have to look at what their agenda is. You have to look at, you know, where do they start from. You have to look at where their money is coming from. You know, I don't separate any money from any real estate and any corporations. Now that means that I'm not going to receive, you know, a large amount of funds to my campaign like everybody else. But I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at grassroots. I'm looking at being held accountable from the people who give me those funds, which are the people. You know, because when the corporation gives you money, guess who you have to answer to? That corporation. Because that corporation can either support you or run a candidate against you. You know, that corporation could dig up some things on you that nobody really wants to know, and they release it out there. I believe that my power needs to be held in the hands
Can't they
of
do
the
that
people.
whether they give you money or not?
Huh?
Can't they do that whether they
Well,
give you money
well, yeah,
or not?
but
Whether you
they get-
accept their money or not? Can't they still do those things?
Yeah, but they have more control. You know, who's your master at the end of the day? You know, because like Diana Richardson, Assemblywoman for 43rd District, she said this in one of her civic-minded meetings. She was like, that a lot of them, they look at, okay, this person gives me $1,000. This person only gives me support, you know, vocally or online. And she says that a lot of the elected officials, they basically look at only that person that gives them that large amount of money because that's how they can run. You know, but the thing is, like, if I'm grassroots, I don't have to worry about that. You know, I'm going to make things happen. You know, if you give me $10, guess what? I'm excited. I'm excited like a kid in a candy store because I could do a lot with that $10. Whether I'm out there with fancy flyers or I'm out there creating printouts. And so be it, you know, the message is going to get out there. Or whether I'm using that $10 for me to get to point A to point B in the cab and stuff like that, so that way I could do a speak out with my bullhorn. Right. You know, because like myself, like my opponent, she's been putting out mailers for the past like 2-3 years now. You know, and it's always about, you know, this is what I'm doing, when it's really not. It's things that she's co-sponsored, but she's not doing it. She's not putting in the work. You know, but everybody fell for that. But then I come along and all of that is being demolished. Her foundation of lies is being demolished. You know, a lot of things that she's been saying that, she's not involved in has been been exposed. Right. Yes, I'm a green candidate, but I have a lot of democratic groups that support me. You know, I'm a democratic socialist, been a member for like a year and a half now. You know, I'm a part of the Lambda Independent Democrats, MoveOn.org, you know, Change.org, you know, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. You know, like, I'm a part of many groups that are nonprofit and that are grassroots. But it's about you being true to who you are. And they came to me because of who I am, but what I stand for. You know, they understand that I cannot be swayed. I cannot be, you know, pushed one way or another if it's not aligned with the people. And that's how I've been. One of the reasons why I'm the leader of the Brooklyn Sector Cop Watch Patrol Unit. I'm out here putting in the work that a lot of people do not want to do because, you know, a lot of them want to be complacent or they want to just, you know, go with the flow. They want to be comfortable. But the thing is, our comfort is the reason why a lot of these things are happening right now. Right. We got too comfortable. Right. We have to learn to be uncomfortable to make them feel uncomfortable.
That's where growth comes in, when you're uncomfortable.
Exactly. You know, and the thing is, we need
that comfort zone.
Exactly. You know, we don't have economical power. We don't have political power. And there's a reason why. They created it so that we don't. But then a lot of people just said, know what? As long as I can have my 9 to 5, I'm good. As long as I can get this raise at the end of this quarter, I'm good. As long as I can, be able to get this promotion sometime soon, I'm good. But I tell people, they don't love you and they don't love who you are. They only love what you can do for them. So as long as you're either sitting back and doing nothing or you're going out there and keep on putting them in power, that's the only thing they love. But you have to now start going against the grain. You have to show them enough is enough. I am tired of it. One of the issues in my district, I was on Radio Paiute with this group called Komakoda, who's a Haitian organization. And, and my opponent, she's of Haitian descent. So she tried to divide the community that way. We named the community as being Little Caribbean. Mm-hmm. She wanted to name it as Little Haiti. And she did that, despite the fact of all the rest of the coaches that are there. But that was her divide and conquer. Right. You either a colonizer or you got a colonizer mindset or you're revolutionary. Okay. And she decided to go on this approach, which I call European warfare, to basically divide the people so that way she could keep her blocks of votes. But then the thing is, what she didn't realize was, I don't have to be a part of the culture in order for me to talk to the people. Right. I'm out there, boots on the ground.
Respect for the culture.
Yeah, I'm out there, boots on the ground every single day. I hand out my flyers. I had somebody tell me the other day, hey, why are you out here handing out your flyers and doing your own petitioning? Don't you have staff for that? I'm like, why would I just have them out here and I'm not out here? Oh, yeah. I have to stay true to who I am.
Absolutely.
So even people say,
well, that. You can't ask anybody to do anything you wouldn't be able to do yourself.
And I got volunteers, to do it. Like I said, I'm a Green, but I got Reform Party volunteers, Libertarian volunteers, Democratic volunteers, Green Party volunteers. I'm probably the only one that has that wide base. But it's about the fact that they came to me because of what I've done, and I don't do it for me. I'm not in this for me. I'm not running for me. I'm running for the people. I'm doing everything I can for the people. My sleepless nights is for the people. You waking up in the morning, it's 5, 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, you see my flyers on your car. Guess what? I was out there 2, 3 o'clock in the morning to make sure you understand what we pushing. And a lot of the bills that I want to push, a lot of people are like, man, that's kind of too radical because those are actual solutions. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? You're going to have to tell me and the people no before I say, no, I'm going to take it back. I have a housing justice bill. I have an immigration justice bill. I have my cop watches bill. All these things I'm putting to actually hit on every single issue. Okay. And that's the thing, because a lot of people will say that, they support the, fighting against the issues that we're going through, but they're not putting in the work. I'm at least willing to put in the work and introduce these bills and let you tell me no and tell the people no before I say, you know what, let's mobilize and let's get out there. Okay. And that same thing like with the New York Health Act. It's been passing Assembly for the past 4 years now and stuff. I was out there lobbying.
More than 4 years.
Yeah.
He's been in there for like 20 something years.
And
same brother in downtown Manhattan has been pushing the same bill through the Assembly for 20 something years.
Yeah.
That's deep.
I
want to ask you a question right quick. Before we go, we're going to have a couple minutes. We're going to have to wrap up. I'm a young millennial. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting home. Or I'm a politician looking to get millennials out to vote for me in this midterm election. Tell me some of the issues that young folks want to see addressed as they go to the polls in this election cycle.
So social justice, huge issue. Economic development, huge issue. It's tougher now to get a job than any other job history of a person turning 18 since the Great Depression. Student loans, huge issue. Immigration, huge issue. A lot of the issues that are activating people across the country are just magnified for the people 18 and over. Mm-hmm. We are at the forefront of a lot of these issues. And sometimes we don't even know it. When we're talking about Social Security, we're talking about bankrupted Social Security. Who do you think is going to get the bankrupt Social Security accounts? Us. Yeah. We are the ones who are going to suffer about retirements. They're going to be long gone when the account runs out. Exactly. But we got so many other priorities in our way. We're not even thinking that far ahead. I'm worried about 5 years from now. Other people are doing the exact same thing. It's just I have 50 years to worry about as opposed to your 5. So excuse me for focusing on the 5.
Right. Okay. True. Great. Naila, question. If I'm a woman and I want to run, I'm thinking about running. Tell me some of the qualifications. What's happening here?
Tell me a little more about this.
Tell me something. Don't worry,
Using
we're getting
technical
recorded and streamed
difficulties.
live. We say nobody's relying on me to see this broadcast. Thank goodness. We say what they can't.com. Y'all be able to see this live in a greatly edited copy at some point. Don't rely on Kamel for your content right now. Don't worry about that. But tell me, what are some of the qualifications I have to have? Do I have to be born in the U.S.? Do I have to be 21 or over, 18 or over? What do I have to be in order to run if I'm a woman that's looking to get out there and vote, run, and lead?
So legally, each elected position has its own rules. Like you have to be a certain age, having had to have lived in the district a certain amount of time. In terms of qualifications, I think this is one of the most beautiful and frustrating parts of democracy is that we get to decide as voters what we look for in our elected officials. So, for example, me personally, I look at a candidate through the lens of one, where do they stand on the positions that are important to me? And two, what are their leadership and experience in terms of what are they bringing into this particular office? Okay. And so for leadership is that integrity? Are they ability to communicate? Do they have the ability to build coalitions to be successful as an elected official? But again, because we live in a representative democracy, that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? I have, worked campaigns and knocked on doors of people who, quite frankly, could not care less about qualifications, but were more focused on are they man or are they woman? Are they Black, Latino? Do they look like me? Okay. And so, again, as a millennial, I have a lot of different layers that I look for in terms of who I support. Okay. Primarily, again, where do they stand on the positions and what are their leadership and experience qualifications. But for a woman who is interested in running, I think it's really important that we change this conversation about what does it mean to be qualified to run for office. Okay. Because to the point that was made, oftentimes there are career politicians who are essentially groomed to become elected officials one day. Right. And that's certainly one track. But I think that in doing so, we lose an opportunity as communities, as neighborhoods, as an electorate to really begin to build a legislative body that is really diverse and has a lot of different experience. And I think that is what makes government work the best, is that when we're confronting a problem, if everyone has the same experience, then we're only going to have a limited number of solutions that are going to be stifled in terms of creativity and innovation.
Absolutely.
And so if you're a woman and you're interested in running for office, do not fall into this false narrative that you have to have a certain number of years experience or a specific type of experience, or you have to have a particular type of degree or a number of degrees. All of that is irrelevant so long as you have the passion to serve the public interest, so long as you have this rooted commitment within you to serve your community, and that you are willing to put in the work, the blood, sweat, and tears, the sweat equity, to make change. And so, I offer to any woman listening, if you're interested in running for office, know that you are qualified and that you are more than capable of doing what men have been doing since the inception of our Constitution, and we can do it better. So run for office, 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 run for office.
All right, well, on that note, we have a quick 2 minutes left before we sign off, maybe one. So tell us where folks can find you at and where you can be found, and tell us a little bit about how they can find you online, your social media platforms, websites, things of that nature.
Absolutely. So I am a national trainer and alumna of Vote Run Lead, and we can be found at hashtag Vote Run Lead. And also our Twitter handle is Vote Run Lead, and my personal Twitter handle is my name, NAILAH AMARU. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions about running for office.
Okay, great. Mr. Beckford, to you. So tell everyone where they can find you at.
My website is Vote for Beckford on BECKFORD.nationbuilder.com. You can catch me on Facebook and Twitter as well, too. My Twitter is Vote4 Beckford. My Facebook is Facebook.com/Anthony Beckford for State Assembly.
All right. And Amir, tell us where folks can find you at. Sir.
Sure. www.amirabadi.com. I'm on everything at Amir Abadi.
Great. I want to thank all of you for coming here today. This is a very lively discussion. This hour went fast. I looked up my producers like it's time to wrap this thing up. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Of course, my name is Kamel Ellis, CEO, co-founder, One World Fest Global. We're broadcasting live from the beautiful studios of We Say What They Can't, Radio One World Fest Global, live from Brooklyn, New York City. We'll see you guys here again on the last Sunday of every month from Radio One World Fest Live Global. We thank you for joining us. Thank all of my great guests.
Thanks for
Amir
having
Abadi,
us.
Naila Amaru, and Mr. Anthony Beckford. You guys have a great day and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Goodbye.